Hola, clase. Hoy vamos a revisar los verbos irregulares de cambios ortográficos en el pretérito. El año pasado, we referred to these types of irregulars as spelling changers. Un tipo de cambios ortográficos es los verbos I a Y. Solo vamos a usar tres verbos comunes en esta categoría: leer, que significa read; creer, believed; y oír, que significa heard in inglés. Okay, so let's take a look at each of these verbs so that you can see why we call them I to Y spelling changers in the preterite tense. We'll take the verb leer first. So the verb leer, when it gets conjugated in the preterite tense, becomes leí, leíste, leo, leímos, leeron. Now you can see where we have the Y, but you might not understand how we got there. So let me show you. We'll start by looking at the endings. So the ending E, iste, but then in the LA form, remember that if you were going to add the proper endings on here, you would add the I and the O on there, right? But instead of using that I, we change that I to a Y. That is why this is called an I to Y spelling changer. The next one, the ending emos, that's regular, right? And then here in the next one, you would have to look at it like this, because usually we would add I-E-R-O-N, right? That would be our regular ending for ER verbs. But instead, we're changing that I to a Y. So we end up with leeron. You will notice that we only change the I to a Y in the el, ella, usted form, in the ellos, ellas, ustedes form. If you think back to when we have done this before, you'll remember that for preterite stem changers, we also only take a stem change in the el, ella, usted, and the ellos, ellas, ustedes forms, all right? In the yo form, in the tu form, and in the nosotros form, we don't do stem changers, and we also don't do spelling changers. There are some examples on the right-hand side using the verb leer in the preterite tense. So, anteayer yo leí dos libros. So, yesterday I read two books. Ayer tú leíste una revista. Yesterday you read a magazine. Mi madre leyó la Biblia. My mother read the Bible. Those are just a couple examples. Let's look at our next verb now. And here we have the verb creer. Creer means to believe, or sometimes it can mean to think. So when we conjugate it in the preterite tense, we end up with creí, creíste, creyó, creímos, and creyeron. And you'll notice that it only takes the spelling change in the el, ella, usted form and in the ellos, ellas, ustedes forms, just like the verb leer. So if you think about it, you would usually, if you were just going to add the regular ER endings, you would add an IO here, but you'll notice that you change that I to a Y. And then the same with the ellos, ellas, ustedes, you would normally have your ending I, E, R, O, N, which if you think about it, that looks kind of funny. Creyeron, and they change it to creyeron. They change that I to the Y there. There's some examples on the right here. No creímos la historia de mi padre. We didn't believe my father's story. Creí que Papa Noel existía de verdad. I believed that Santa Claus existed, or like that he really existed. Ellos creyeron que no fue un accidente. They believed that it wasn't an accident. So again, just some examples. And you'll see that in those examples, in two of those examples, I didn't change the I to a Y, but that last one there, since it was in the third person, I did change the I to a Y. So I did ellos creyeron instead of with the I there. And por último, el verbo oír. So you can see it's just like leer and creer. Oír means to hear. So in the past tense, it's heard. We have oí, oíste, oyó, oímos, and oyeran. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I will just show you what it would have been, which you can see would be really weird. And that's why, again, you change that I to a Y in the el, ella, usted, and ellos, ellas, ustedes forms. Some examples on the right. No oíste las noticias. You didn't hear the news. Ellos no oyeron nada. And Marta oyó un grito. So Marta heard a scream. That's all I have for you. They really are simple. There's only 3 of them, and you just have to remember that slight change from an I to a Y in 2 of the forms for all of these. So they're at least consistent, even though they are irregular.